All right, welcome to another video. I just want to do a quick short video today, and it's on a word play. It's two different words. All right, so this video I got from my wife, and I thought about it, figured out how I want to say it, and then kind of giving it to you guys a little bit differently. So there's two different types of men in the world. Yahweh created two different types of men. One type of man is called an Ishi, I-S-H-I man. And that is a humble, loving man. You think of Adam, you think of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. They were loving, humble men to their wives, okay? Look at Yeshua. You could look at all of the prophets. Most of them were Ishi men, okay? Then you have Baali men, B-A-A-L-I, and that is a master. That is someone who treats people like you do what I say or else. Like there is no second chances. There is no, you're gonna do it whatever I say. So Ishi is very humble. He's very loving and caring, okay, sweet. Baali is strictly business. Hey, you do what I say, this is what we need to do, you do exactly what I say. Why does this matter and why am I talking about it? I'm talking about it because we have to understand Yahweh. Yahweh in the Old Testament was a Baali man. When you look at with a Baali God, all right? When you look at the law of Moses, the books that Moses wrote, the first 5 books of the Bible, Moses wrote how Yahweh would tell people, this is what I want you guys to do. And then whenever they come out of Egypt, okay, they had problems because there were some that wanted to go back to Egypt. There were some that wanted to do different things. They didn't all agree on the way that they should go, because there were some that wanted to create their own way and do their own thing. But Yahweh was like, no, there's only one me. I'm not taking a back seat for nobody. You have to understand me, and I'm a Baali, and if you don't do what I say, I'll kill you, okay? The consequences were very, very harsh. Look at the angels. There was no second chance. They messed up, done, you're out of here. Look at Aaron's 2 sons. They sacrificed strange fire in the censers. Done, out of here instantly. There were certain people that got there was no grace at all. And then there were certain people that received grace. Okay? So Yahweh in the Old Testament was a Baali. And I want to say this because there are certain people online that are saying Yahweh means Baal. And they're using the term Baali as Baal, taking the I off, which it's still the same word. It still has the same meaning. But we know the god Baal is completely different from Yahweh. Okay, Baal was like, hey, you got to prove your love to me. You have to prove that you love me more than anything else by sacrificing your children, basically perverting what Yahweh told Abraham, right? And that way they would prove their love to the god Baal. But Yahweh is different from Baal, because he never wanted to be harsh. The people made him be harsh. He ended up divorcing us, ended up divorcing Judah, Israel, Samaria, close to the end of the Old Testament, right? And he promised that he would come back. He wasn't going to completely leave us, but he was going to come back, and he was going to make a new covenant with us. Okay, then the New Testament, he tells us through Yeshua, this is the new covenant. This is my new way. This is how I'm going to redeem you. Yeshua came as a Ishi man. He came lowly, humble. He came loving, to teach people to do it the gentle way. Now, when Yeshua comes back, he's going to be a Baali. You can read it in the book of Revelation. He's going to come back with vengeance. He's going to come back, and it's not going to be the same person. People are going to be looking at him like, oh, it's Yeshua, it's Jesus. Oh, welcome back. And he's just going to be swiping people left and right, getting rid of them, killing people left and right, because he's not the same person. He's coming back just like the Father came at first in the Old Testament. And then in the end, when Yeshua gets finished with mankind, then the Father is going to be this loving, sweet person, because there won't be a need for a Baali type of man. So what do we do about these two types of men in modern day? We have to look at modern men, and even men in the Bible. There's men that were Baali type of men. In a way, King David was kind of a Baali type of man. He switched back and forth. There were some types. You remember when he was running from Saul, and he went to the man's house, Nabal, and he asked for some provisions, and he explained that, hey, when your shepherds were out in the fields, we make sure that nobody bothered them. We made sure that they were safe. And Nabal was like, I don't care. I'm not giving you nothing. And David was like a Baali type of man. He was like, I'll kill everybody. So he went away, made plans to come back and kill everybody. And as he was coming up the road, his wife met him and gave him the provisions that they asked for, and apologized on behalf of her husband. And that stopped David from killing everybody in the house. Let's see, something I was talking to my wife about just this morning. She was telling me the story of Dinah, and how Jacob's sons, how Dinah was raped by the prince of the little city, and so they made a covenant with him and said, hey, if you're like us, if you become like us, then we'll give you our sons and we'll take your daughters, okay, to marry our sons. And when they got circumcised, the third day was the most painful day, and two of his sons went and killed all the men of the entire city, okay, and then took all the women and children as captives, which basically they became Hebrews, okay. So they just kind of took them as Hebrews and changed how they were and all that. That was a display of Baali men who say, oh, you messed us over, all right, there is no grace, there is no peace, we got to kill everybody. Then you have other men, at that moment Jacob was like, oh, let's try to find a peaceful resolution. And his sons were like, nah, heck no, ain't no peace, not with this. So there's different types of men, okay. Husbands, you are called to be Ishi husbands. You are not called to be Baali husbands. You're called to be gentle, loving towards your wives. Not saying you're a pushover, not saying that you're a yes man, not saying that you're always just going to agree with her, because then you kind of become like a Ahab to Jezebel. She just will run right over you and you won't have any say, So you have to have wisdom, but men should always be Ishi men, never Baali men, because a Baali man is an abusive man. A Baali man is a man that will put his hands on his wife, talk to her very harshly, will misuse his authority under Yahweh. Yahweh never intended for us to be that type of man. That is for Yahweh, our Heavenly Father, to vengeance is His, right? But we also need to be protective of our households and our families and our community, not allowing other people to come into our community and take advantage of them, not allowing people to come into our household and take advantage of it. You know, when I say community, I mean community of Hebrews. I'm not talking about people who are not Hebrews. I'm not talking about everybody out in the community. I'm talking when you have a community of Hebrews. Just like Jacob had his sons and his family, they became a community of Hebrews. And when Dinah was raped, they said certain things ought not to be done in all of Israel. Okay? Meaning the Father's house. These things should not be done in the Father's house, in our household. So I want to use that to segue into this. I want you guys to realize the type of men that Yahweh wanted us to be from the beginning. Okay? When we see disrespect, we don't take disrespect. Okay? We should never allow people to disrespect us in any way, shape, or form. That should be met with the harshest punishment. Okay? Especially outsiders. Even in the household of Israel, Yahweh created a way that if someone killed someone, it was up to the brother or cousin or a close relative to go and return the favor on the person who killed your brother, son, cousin, family member. You know, we have become kind of cowards. We're afraid of the Gentiles. We're afraid of the vengeance of our government. We're afraid of the police. We're afraid of the military. We're afraid of just citizens who say, I'm going to do this just because. When we see people being mistreated, a lot of times people just pull out their phone, won't actually help the person being mistreated, but we'll just pull out the phones and record. We need to change that and start being what Yahweh called us to be from the beginning. When you disrespect one of ours, you've disrespected all of us, and we should return the favor. I know the New Testament talks about, you know, turn the other cheek, don't do that type of stuff, but I want you guys to understand that there were always zealots in the New Testament. It's not really written in the Bible so much, but in history you can go back and see how there were groups called Bergerons, and there were groups of the I'm sorry, my mind just went blank. I'm thinking about Yeshua. Yeshua was oh goodness, I can't think of it now. Where they didn't cut their hair and they were more strict. Okay. You'll just put in the comments. You know what I'm trying to say. But anyway, there were these different zealous groups of Hebrews. There were these zealous groups of Pharisees. And even while there was infighting and stuff going on with the Romans, anybody who sided with the Romans, there were these groups who would go through and just assassinate people because they were trying to wipe out traitors. They were trying to wipe out people who would help the enemy. And this happened all the way through, you know, the fall of Jerusalem. We need to be about our business. You know, when you think about, it's just kind of off subject a little bit, but when you think about the fear of the Lord, you know how the Bible talks about the fear of the Lord fell upon the people. And it usually always fell upon the people because there was some type of vengeance that always happened. When you go back in the Old Testament, when Moses was leading the children of Israel out of Egypt, they would go through areas, King of Bashan, King Og, and these different kings, right? When they would disrespect the children of Israel, say, oh, we're not going to allow you to come through our area, or if they come through our area, they try to fight them, right? And Yahweh would always give them the victory. And then after that victory, fear, it would always say, fear of the Lord spread throughout the whole area, and people became afraid of them. It wasn't they became afraid of them because they had Yahweh on their side. It was because they got dominated. They went through and killed everybody in that city. So everyone knew, leave those people alone. Don't mess with them. Because they'll kill everybody. They'll wipe everybody out. And that became like a fearful thing, which is what made Balak go out and call Balaam. Okay? King Balak was afraid of them because he heard about what they did to the other kings. So he tried to get someone to curse them, because he knew he couldn't fight them if Yahweh had his hand on them. So he tried to get someone to come out and curse them, because the fear of Yahweh, the fear of vengeance fell on them. In America, the fear of vengeance is on the government. If you know about COINTELPRO, how they were afraid that the black community would rise up and take control and kill and hurt white people. They created COINTELPRO, and I would love for you all to watch or research COINTELPRO, see exactly what it was, read the paperwork, see how in depth it was. It encompassed every aspect of black culture, from movies, music, what you're taught in school, the welfare system, absolutely everything. And it was to destroy the black community out of fear. And the fear was that we would rise up and follow a Jesus character, a Moses character, and defeat them. So they were afraid that our beliefs would get the better of us, and we would stop allowing them to take control of us. And it's true. One day it will happen. But I want us to understand the types of men that there were. Yahweh never created us to really be Ishi men. I mean, yes, he did, but he didn't create us to be pushovers. Okay, which is why I brought up the whole thing about Don. I can't think of her name now. I want to call her Donnie, but it's not Donnie. Jacob's daughter. That's why I brought that whole story up, because I want us to understand you can be gentle, but when someone pushes you, when someone takes advantage of you, you have to put your foot down. This system is always going to push for more and more control, more and more, okay? Pushing us around, taking everything we have over and over and over again until we just have absolutely nothing. And every time we crawl out of a hole, or every time we get back on our feet a little bit, something else comes along to try to trip us up and try to take away the little bit that we have, okay? At some point, we got to stop allowing these things to happen. And we got to push back and say, no, stops right here. They're always going to push and say, well, or else what? What are you going to do about it? Because they believe that they're the biggest and baddest people in the world, and no one can defeat them. But Yahweh can defeat them. Whether Yahweh uses us to defeat them or he does it all by himself supernaturally. We have to be on our face about every situation to know what is the right thing to do. We can't just flash out and go out and start hurting people. But Yahweh never called us to be pushovers. He never called us to be afraid of absolutely everything and everyone, because our faith, at some point, we're going to have to stand up in our faith. At some point, this government, this beast system, is going to push us to the breaking point and saying, you bow down to us or else. And then it's time for us to say, or else what? And deal with the or else what. But we need to understand the type of men, the type of God we have. We need to understand that how we're to be, how we were, and what we need to return to. When you look at the history, when you look at Jacob, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, when you look at, especially Jacob, his sons, and their life before they went into Egypt, when you study that, you realize how we were supposed to be from the very beginning. The type of men that we were supposed to be, and the type of women, the rules, the things that Yahweh gave to Moses, they were already practicing, because it was just in them. Yahweh was speaking to Jacob, was giving them dreams, was giving them revelations, speaking to him, telling them, this is the type of people I want you to be. We are returning to that now, so we need to relearn. So we need to go back, and we need to study, and we need to read how Jacob was, how his sons were, what happened throughout that time, because that's the type of people we should be as a whole. And then we should also understand the type of people that Yahweh expected us to be when we came out of Egypt, but we weren't. We're still not that type of people. So we need to transform ourselves into the type of people that Yahweh expected us to be. We need to become that, okay? Because it is for our betterment. Because that is exactly who Yahweh called us to be. But I think that's it. Like, there's so much I can go on and on and on about, but I don't want to just be rambling. I kind of want to stay to the point. I can go way far off and just teach and teach and teach and just talk and talk. There's so much in my head that I've learned, that I know, and I've experienced. Oh, talk about experiences. I want to give you a real quick praise report of something, okay? For the longest time, my wife has been praying for me, that, Yahweh would transform me into this, exactly what Yahweh wanted me to be, would want me to be. And I had this really cool experience, okay? I was in the 18-wheel, I was sleeping, and no, I wasn't in 18-wheel, I'm sorry. I was at home. I had just made it home. And I was in the bed. And right before it got light outside, an angel of Yahweh came up on side of the bed, and I felt its presence, and it kind of woke me up. Just its presence woke me up. Not a fearful presence, not anything bad or anything, but I could just tell that there was someone there. My wife had went to work, so no one was in the house except me, or in the bedroom except me. So this angel walks up, and he does something to me, kind of put me in like a paralysis state. I could think, but I couldn't move. And then I feel like my chest open, and I feel like this energy coming out of my eyes, my mouth, my nose, and in my chest. And this tremendous amount of energy just coming out of me, something being pulled out of me, and then something being put back into me. And when I woke up, or when I fully got up, I said, okay, God, I understand you just did something. And I understand that you, I believe you took out my heart of stone and given me a heart of flesh. And I believe you've taken out things that I've been praying about, my wife's been praying about as well. Things that trip me up. You know how Paul asked for the thorn in his flesh to be removed? Well, I've been asking for a similar thing. I want an easier time to not have to deal with certain things. And I honestly believe it was done that day, because my thoughts are completely different, and the way I see things are completely different, and I have this urge to return back to how it used to be, how Yahweh created us to be from the very beginning. I mean, I've spoken about these things on many videos, but there is something in me now that feels like we have to be the people that Yahweh called us to be from the very beginning. The children of Jacob, the children of Israel, that he expected us to be from the very beginning. The exact way that he called Israel to be out of Egypt, you know. So there's a lot of new things, and I'm processing a lot of new feelings that I'm having. I'm processing a lot of new emotions, a lot of new spiritual things. It's almost like muscles you flex that you don't really know that you're flexing or how you're flexing it. And once you do it accidentally, you try to figure out how to do it on purpose. It's kind of like that, kind of walking in a lot of newness right now. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick praise report on that, because I think that's amazing. We're always pushing for more of Yahweh's presence, or more of his anointing, more of his growth in our lives. And when he does something major and big in our lives, it's like, oh, this is great. You know, now we process what happened, and we try to understand what does it mean, and how it's going to affect our walk from this point on. And that's exactly what I'm kind of going through right now. So that's it, you know. So I just want to let you guys know that, and that's it. I don't want to keep getting off subject and keep going and going and going. Although I got tons and tons and tons of great stories and great things that I could talk about, I'll end it here, and we'll save some for another video. So y'all have an amazing Shabbat, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.